So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to bring up the great man, Mr. Doyle Iemma.
Welcome. It's great to see so many familiar faces. We don't often get to meet in person, so I know myself personally, I enjoy sort of meeting people in person, so it's good. Sometimes we just have a voice at the other end of the phone and we don't often get to see the person, so this is one of the reasons that we like to put this stuff on for you. We've got our service providers here tonight, so thank you to the guys for coming along. Again, like Andrew said, we put ourselves in a position where we refer people or we recommend people, and we wouldn't recommend them if they weren't doing the right thing and looking after our clients. So for us, that's really important. We have Alessandro from Avalon Painting. Ale, thank you. My eyesight's not very good. Taz, obviously we've got Taz. Jonathan from Catalyst Advisors. They've just opened up in Dee Why on the corner of Pittwater Road and Oaks Avenue, so Jonathan can assist you with all things finance. Sandy, drip dry showers and Northern Beaches tiling, I think, yeah. Again, Sandy does a great job sealing showers without minimum fuss, so he does a great job for us. Florazone, I don't think Zaid's here tonight, but that's okay. Sammy from Frostbite Air Conditioning is here with us tonight, so anyone that needs air conditioning, speak to Sam. The mold doctor, so we've got the mold doctor, and that's we're probably coming into peak season now, where everyone starts to get sort of mold issues, so pop along and have a look at their stuff. They've also donated a dehumidifier tonight that's going to be raffled, so I know the last person that won that last time still tells me about it every time we speak, what a great prize it was, so it's great. Anthony from Performance Plumbing is here somewhere. Anthony also assists us with renovating kitchens and bathrooms as well, so does a great service he provides. Who we got? Brad from Property Insurance Plus. He looks a little bit different, but he used to be one of our property managers many years ago, but he aged a lot since then. Property management is supposed to age you, but it was the opposite for Brad, kept him young. But anyway, he's over there. And Carlo from Wit Services, many of you have already met or come across Carlo. Again, does some great work for us as well. And Ryan, yeah, REO. Did I miss him? Yeah. And Ryan from REO Electrical is somewhere. Yep. And Ryan jumps in and does all our smoke alarm compliance as well. So again, that's a big thing that he does for us and helps us out. And in saying that, everyone on that list, we're very grateful to have working with us. I speak to people every day, and the biggest complaint is they can never get trades. Everyone on that list will do whatever it takes to sort of get to and assist our landlords or our properties and our tenants, and we very much appreciate it. Possible upcoming changes to legislation. Okay, so we rentals and landlords, tenants seem to be the flavour of the month, probably flavour of the last 3 months. And every time you pick up a newspaper, you still read newspapers, but see something online, it's all about rentals. It's all about landlords. It's all about tenants. So there are some changes to the legislation that are coming, and for us to sort of dig a bit deeper into that, we've just gone and we look at Victoria and Queensland where a lot of these legislation is already in place. So, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in New South Wales. The thing with legislation is that they don't need to ask anyone. It just comes into play pretty much straight away. And as the first one that came into play on the 17th of December was rent bidding. So again, I didn't think it was a massive problem, but obviously it seemed to be out there. The biggest issue with sort of rent bidding was that with properties being hard to come by, they perceive that, especially agents, and this legislation was aimed at agents specifically. So if you're a landlord, you're a private landlord, you can rent bid and do whatever you like, but as an agent, we're not allowed to do that. So they felt that agents were sort of contributing to the issues with the tenant market or the tenancy sort of shortage, and therefore this legislation came in overnight. And basically what it means is that we have to advertise a property with a fixed price. So, and that's okay because most of the time we do that anyway. But over the years we sometimes use, if we were struggling to move something, we might put office over or offers or contact agent. So that's now illegal to do. So you can only have a fixed price. We can't entertain any dialogue when it comes to rent. So people will come to us and go, what do we need to pay to get this place? We basically can't entertain that dialogue. So for us, it's just that there's your application. Whatever figure you put there is what figure we will provide to the owner. The other thing is that we also can't go back and forth. So if the owner says, oh, I want $10 more, we can't go back and ask that question. So it is what it is. But look, for us, that's never been a massive problem, because I think most of our landlords know that as long as we're around the rent that we receive is a fair market rent, then most of our landlords are happy with that. Yes, people will come and offer more. Sometimes there's red flags that appear when someone does that, but at the moment I know it's happening a lot because of the shortage in rentals sort of thing. So, so we can't entertain any dialogue. We can't advertise range. We can't ask people to make higher offers, and it doesn't apply if if the landlord's advertising privately. Those laws don't apply. So, but that one, it's been since the 17th of December. Hasn't really been an issue for us, and I guess I can't see it being a major issue moving forward. So I think a lot of these legislations, when they're first spoken about, everyone sort of panics and thinks, oh wow, how are we going to get through this? But it's the same as the last time we had our last investor night was in 2020, just before COVID, and there was a whole list of new legislation came out, and we thought, wow, how are we going to navigate through this? We came in, we had COVID, we had all these other issues. But the legislation wasn't an issue, and we still moved forward with that. The purpose of the changes are that the rental vacancy rates are dropping and rents increasing, and there have been reports that tenants have been urged by real estate agents to offer higher rental amounts to secure a property. We would never do that. So the next one we go to is rental increases, and again, I guess, and this came in 2020, it hasn't been an issue, but it's now becoming an issue because the rents are moving. So, a couple of years ago, if you put the rent up once every 12 months, that was quite normal. You'd have a 2 to 3% increase and everyone was happy. Now, obviously, because the rents are moving so quickly and there's a lot of demand, that's creating issues. So sometimes, they're looking at the rent, and what we got 6 months ago is it says move beyond that sort of thing. But while they're on a lease, we can't increase the rent. So if we've given someone a 12-month lease, that's the rent, that's locked in. The only way you can do an increase during a lease is if you negotiate that from day one, which is a really difficult thing to do. It's like you're saying to someone, oh look, the rent's going to be $600 a week for the next 8 months, and then after that it's going to be $650. So, you're trying to foresee what's going to happen in the future, and a lot of tenants will kick back on that, which is understandable. On a periodic agreement, and again, this is going to become relevant shortly when potentially these other legislation comes in place around leases, but with regards to a periodic agreement, you can only increase it once every 12 months. So if it's on a continuing period and you increase it in April 2023, the next increase cannot happen to April 2024. Possible changes. So I think this is going to have the biggest impact. And again, when you look at it, it is a little bit scary. But like everything else, we need to sort of navigate through it. So what's happened in Victoria and Queensland is potentially, if your tenant is just on a periodic agreement, you can't just ask them to move out for no reason in 90 days. So they have got prescribed reasons, and those prescribed reasons are along the lines of, you're demolishing the place. You have to do substantial renovations. A member of your family that currently resides under the same roof as you needs the property. So it's not going to be as simple as just saying, oh, look, you know what, I don't know, we're going to do something else with the property and, we're just going to give you notice. So potentially that, it's already in place in those states, so I think we're going to get the same. There are slight tweaks to the Queensland one and the Victorian one, but I think that's potentially what we're going to have. And I noticed that, obviously I don't know if we can do much about it, with both major parties in the election this weekend have got their catch clause or something to do with rentals not giving tenants notice, rent capping, rent bidding, and all that sort of stuff. So again, I think they're both jumping on the bandwagon there. But potentially what will happen is, what you can do in Victoria is that, well, in Victoria you can't, but in Queensland you can. If you give a tenant a 12-month lease, you can give them notice to move out at the end of that 12-month. And it's just an end of fixed term. So you can do that in Queensland. You can do that to some extent in Victoria, but you still need to have a prescribed reason. So the biggest thing that I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, what happens here? Having a tenant on a lease is going to be crucial. So the days are gone where you're just going to let a lease run just on a continuing basis, because, and not, look, some people may not need the property back, it's just going to be a long-term rental, and that's okay. But you can still sell it. Like, one of the prescribed reasons is selling it, renovating substantially, you have a family member that needs it. And obviously, if the tenant defaults in any way, you can still give them notice and go through that process. It's more to do with no reasons. You know, you can't just say, I don't like the tenant, so I'm going to ask them to leave. And you know, that doesn't happen that much with us. You know, because I guess, yeah, our landlords are sort of pretty switched on, and you know, they attract sort of the right tenants. But yeah, that's probably the biggest issue that I can foresee moving forward. And it's not really an issue, it's just our mindset where, you know, people were happy to let people continue on. Now you're going to have to look at that and say, okay, well, if you won't sign the lease, because some tenants won't want to sign a new lease. This is where it becomes, and I get what the government's trying to do, but with these legislations, but this is where it becomes an issue, because the tenant may say to you, I don't want to sign a new lease. And then you're going to have to say, well, then you have to move out. So they're going to have to move out anyway. So, you know, there's not going to be that latitude where you think, okay, we'll just let you stay on for another couple of months, because then potentially you won't be able to get them out if you need them out, sort of thing. So, yeah, so that's probably the biggest change that potentially could affect the way we sort of, you know, do business moving forward. Pets is a big thing as well. Look, it's still, as a landlord can still say no to pets in New South Wales. In Queensland and Victoria, you can't. So the strata can't say no anymore. So, you know, years ago the strata used to say, oh, no pets, and we'd say, okay, no pets allowed. Now the strata can't even say that. They can't refuse a tenant from having a pet, or an owner from having a pet. So if you buy a property, you can't be told that you're not allowed to have a pet by the strata. They can't refuse you. But as a landlord, you can say, no, I don't want pets at the moment. So, you know, that's everyone's prerogative. Look, we love pets. I've got two little dogs that do my head in, but it's all right. But again, it's just different. Like, there's a lot of different issues that come in. It's not just repairs. It's barking, it's noise, potentially. You know, if your neighbour's getting upset about a dog barking, that can potentially come back on you as a landlord if your tenant's pet is not controlled, sort of thing. So there's different issues that come with it. But at the moment, we can still say no to pets. Or our landlords can still say no to pets, even though strata can't. And again, we probably get 10 calls a week where people say, oh, you're not allowed to say that, but because they perceive that the legislation has changed. It has for strata, but not for agents, or not for landlords, yeah. But again, in Queensland and Victoria, you can't say that anymore. In Victoria, I think it is, in Victoria, if the tenant has no pet when they move in, but then get a pet, you can actually stop that. So if you've said no, they didn't have a pet when they started, and they get a pet when they move in, you can actually say no. In Queensland, you can't. You've got 14 days to respond, and if you don't respond, it's just automatically the pet moves in, sort of thing. So that's a couple of little tweaks there for us that potentially could come up. Look, the other stuff at the moment, we went through this in 2020, where compliance was a big thing, minimum standard was a big thing, but again, you freak out when you sort of read the fine print, but then in reality, in the workings of it all, most properties are going to meet minimum standards. You know, if they don't, well, we're not managing it. In Victoria and Queensland, I think now they have compulsory annual gas checks and electrical safety checks. So, like we have Ryan, who goes and does the smoke alarm checks every year, and again, that still is an issue for us, because most of the properties we manage are apartments, and strata do these compliance checks on smoke alarms. But what strata do does not cover a landlord as part of the rental legislation. So I went to a property today, and sure enough, there was no smoke alarm. I said to the lady, was an elderly lady who had to move out because she had a stroke and actually had to knock down the door to get her out because they couldn't get in. But there's no smoke alarm in there. And yet Strata's probably going there every year saying there's a smoke alarm, but there's no smoke alarm there. So things like that. Whether it comes to gas and electrical, look, I think anything like that is not a bad thing, because I think all of us would not want an issue to happen. I know even last Friday we had a report that an oven had exploded in DY, and we went there and it wasn't what it was made out to be. But we get anxious about stuff like that. You don't want something to happen on our watch, sort of thing. So if stuff like that does come out, look, I know it costs money, and sometimes that can be a deterrent for people. But I think if it allows you to sleep better at night and know that you spent $99 to get a smoke alarm check, well then I think that's money well spent, sort of thing. So, but that's the majority of it at the moment. Potentially could change all the time, but I think things that they bring in sometimes have a good effect. And the most disappointing thing at the moment is that I feel that our landlords are carrying the weight of interest rate rises and legislation pushes, and we seem to be at the forefront of everything bad that's happening with the housing. I think our landlords do the government's job by providing housing, and that should be rewarded in some way, whether it's tax cuts or whatever. I don't know, it seems pretty simple for me, but I'm not real smart, so I don't know, there's obviously smarter people at play there, but I think something needs to be done to allow our landlords and investors to get into the market and provide more accommodation. But I'll be here all night, so if you have any questions around any of that information, we've also got our property management team all here and happy to take questions. Chris is smiling there at me saying, yes, come and speak to me. But feel free to source us out and have a chat. Thank you.